never paid more than 6% down on a property, with one exception, and that is a house I bought in cash to flip, and I closed on it for 12 grand. So I say it was like all cash purchase, but I mean, it was $12,000.
You're listening to the W.L.E.R.E Real Estate Show, a podcast that discusses the intricacies of real estate investing with your host, Marcus E. Maloney. Marcus is a real estate investor best known for being the equity king. He's been awarded that moniker because he and his team find amazing real estate deals. He will be talking with investors who have done some transformational things in the real estate industry. They'll discuss their process, their strategies, and how their investments transform their lives and the communities they invest in. We welcome you to the W.L.E.R.E Real Estate Show.
Welcome to another show. Today we have David Pere, who is a military vet who was in the Marine Corps and joined in August of 2008. David served in several tours, one in Afghanistan, and now he's been in real estate investing since 2015. He got started with a house hack, which was a duplex that he used FHA loan financing for. And then he purchased a 10-unit apartment building in Missouri. And from those ventures, he launched from military to millionaire in 2017. And he's been working with vets and active duty military and civilians to help them get started with real estate investing. So David, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for your service.
Hey, I appreciate it. It's been fun. Thanks for having me on the show, brother.
Yeah, no problem, man. So what inspired you going from the military, doing these combat tours and everything like that, just for you to get started as a real estate investor?
Yeah. Someone handed me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad in 2015, and I made a bunch of excuses for why I wasn't going to read it. So he handed me a CD and said, well, you drive a lot while you're a recruiter, so listen to it. And I was like, shucks, like he got me. I can't say no now. Like he called me out. And then I finished the book in like record time, and I downloaded Audible, and I moved on to another book, and then another book, and then another book. And like within 3 or 4 months, I'd closed on a duplex.
So you caught that bug, man. Robert Kiyosaki is good for passing that bug around, man.
That's it. That
kind of got me caught too. And I've been sick ever since doing real estate.
Yeah.
So tell me about that first house hack, man, that duplex. Let's kind of dive in. How did you find it and some of the numbers? So how did you find it, first of all?
Honestly, it was an MLS find in Missouri. There's it's an affordable market. So I was living there, and I looked at a bunch of different places, and I found the one, and it just made sense. It was listed for like 81. I think we got it for 78.
Okay.
And it was, it wasn't expensive. I think I did the math on it with the FHA loan or with the loans, and realized like my apartment is going to be, my lease is going to be up in December, and I am paying $550 a month for a 2-bed, 1-bath apartment, or I could essentially own a duplex with two 2-bed, 1-bath apartments for, it was like $65 more, $75 more. And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because the worst case scenario, I'm paying $65 more to own the place. And that's, you factor in equity, I'm actually not paying more.
Right, exactly.
Less. And I should have used the VA loan, honestly, but my lender kind of talked me out of it. I didn't know enough to know that I should have used the VA loan. So I used the FHA, and it was, 3.5% down. So under $4,000 with closing costs and everything. And I moved, I had to do, I didn't have to, but because I was living in it, I wanted to do the flooring. It was like $1,200. I think that was about all the work I did, other than painting a patio on my own and like some really basic things that I did on my own. Nothing crazy at all.
And I was going to ask you about that. Why did you go FHA versus VA, where you can go 0% down versus 3.5%?
Yeah, I just didn't know any better. My lender basically was like, "Oh, it's not worth going with a VA loan on such a cheap property."
Mm-hmm.
Didn't tell me that I could, use the VA loan more than
twice.
Once.
Exactly.
So, I got misled a little bit, I guess, or maybe he didn't know any different. I don't know.
Okay, so I anticipate you possibly using that VA loan in the
Oh yeah.
future.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I almost used it here in California. I'm going back to Missouri in 2 years, and I plan on buying a 3 or fourplex out there and house hacking that. It just makes sense. I mean, you go back, you put nothing down, and you own a house that's essentially paying you to live in it. Like, yes, yes, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That way you're gaining money without putting any money out. So you're currently living in California, right?
I just got stationed in San Diego. Yep.
Okay, okay, beautiful weather. That's a big difference from compared to what's going on in Missouri right now with the
Mm.
below zero temps and everything.
Yes, yes. My family was definitely not happy about. I mean, they got a snow day, but they were not happy about waking up with -4 the other day.
Yeah, yeah, I can believe it. My family is in Chicago, so
Oh yeah.
same thing, same thing. So, all right, so now you got this. You're doing this house hack. You got this duplex. You found it on an MLS. How did you find your tenants? You know, after you redid the flooring and everything.
Well, I actually moved into the one that I redid the flooring on, so I guess I was my first tenant
Okay,
in that side, and it actually had a tenant in the other side when I bought it. They were under rent; they were at like $425 a month, and now it's rented at about $550 a month for each side, or $525. So they're about $100 under market rent. But he was a plumber; he took care of stuff on his own, and I left them in there. So I went from, I still went from paying, like I said, $550 for the apartment to 125.
all right. So you did the house hack, and now did you use that money to help you purchase the property? And is it in Hawaii? You bought.
No, no, they're still all in Missouri.
Okay,
I've
okay,
just been doing the long distance thing since then. So I kind of started saving that money when I was living in there, and then when I moved, I started it cash flows about $300 a month, and so I was saving that money, and then I was my wife, who I wasn't married to at the time I bought the duplex. She had owned a house, so we kind of we got a HELOC on that, and so we kind of did a combination of that and seller financing to buy the 10 unit as
okay.
my next like rental property.
Well, let's kind of dig into that 10 unit because you said a few things there. First of all, you are a long distance landlord. Then two, you just said you did seller financing and you used a HELOC to
Mm.
purchase the property. So let's start with the seller financing. What was the terms? You know, what was the numbers on getting that 10 unit? Because I know, with some people, they say, hey, I just need to start out with a duplex and then I'll just buy another 2 units to 10 units. So what was that mind shift to help you
It was
do
kind of
that?
an accident, honestly. I was sending out letters for duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. And this guy called me and was like, "Hey, I got a duplex and I don't want to sell it to you." In my head, I'm kind of like, "Okay, well, like, why are you
Why
calling?"
are you calling?
Yeah. And he goes, "But I got a 10 unit." And I was like, "Oh, all right. Well, are you wanting to sell that?" He's like, "Yeah, we could talk." I'm like, "Oh, okay." And it was one thing led to the next. And I was like, "Man, the numbers on this aren't bad." And then it's not totally seller finance. So it was actually 85% bank financing and then 10% seller financing and then 5% from me, which is kind of weird. It was supposed to be 80-10-10. But when we did the repair negotiation, instead of giving me money back at closing, they just dropped the closing, like the purchase
The
price,
purchase price? Okay.
which is a little different, but whatever. It worked out in this case. The bank, I guess, didn't get the memo. So they show up to closing. They got this check. And I was in Hawaii still. And they basically called and said, "Hey, either we go back, it takes us a week to like redo everything and get you a new check and you pay your full down payment, or you pay half of what you were going to pay for a down payment and we just proceed." It's like, I like that. Let's do
Yeah,
that.
option B.
Yeah. So it was less than 11,000 for me out of pocket.
Okay.
To buy this 10 unit. And then the seller financing it was just 10 grand, I think, or 10, 9, something like that,
Okay.
at 4% interest over 5 years. So it was a really simple loan. I definitely could have gotten better terms from it. I mean, I guess I did. If you understand how like notes and stuff work, I paid it off at 18 months. I refinanced it here last month and I paid off the seller financing. And when you do that, I mean, I just basically said, "Hey, here's how much is left on the
Yeah.
loan. Will you take it if I pay it all off right now?" And he said, "Yeah, sure. I want the money." So I paid the 4% interest for like 18 months. And then the remaining money I had borrowed was just totally free. So, I mean, it was probably like 1% interest on maybe less, maybe more on the loan in total. So it's kind of cool.
Well, that's sweet, man. So how did you why did you guys decide to do seller financing for that other 5%?
Oh man, I'm in the military. I don't make a ton of money. Everyone always says like, oh, I don't have any money to invest in real estate. Like I didn't either. I've never paid. Well, I've never paid more than 6% down on a property with one exception. And that is a house I bought in cash to flip. And I closed on it for 12 grand. So I say it was like all cash purchase, but I mean, it was $12,000. So
Right. Gotcha.
not really much it was not bad. And then I pulled a personal loan for that flip. And the 10 unit, really, it wasn't even my money. It was the home equity line of credit that I paid
right?
for it with. So one house is paying off the line of credit. One property's paying off the seller financing and the principal. And I probably put, really, I would say that I have not put more than like 12. So probably less than $20,000 of my own like savings in any of these properties. It's just been like rolling equity and playing seller financing or whatever, which maybe not necessarily the safest way to invest in real estate, but it works. It's kind of like bootstrapping, right? It gets you off the ground.
Yeah. I mean, it really works. And that's what I tell people. A lot of people say, well, you don't need money. Well, that's true. And it's not. I mean, you need some money, but you need to have that creativity to know how to create money out of thin air. So you decided to do the seller financing. How did you bring that conversation to the table with the owner? Because some people they're like, well, why would this person want to loan me money to buy a property that they already own? Logically, it doesn't make sense, until it does. Yeah. So what happened there?
Well, I have this crazy trick that nobody seems to think about. And that is I just say, are you interested in seller financing? And it's amazing because people are a lot more than you think. In fact, at times, like I will literally, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I don't care, but there've been times where I go through Craigslist and I just like every home that's under a certain dollar price on Craigslist, I will just like copy paste. Hi, this property looks interesting. Have you ever considered seller financing? And I'll just send. And one or two people might get back to you. And then you're like, okay, cool. Now I'll look at the numbers on this one to see if it's worth whatever. And I mean, you never know. Some of those guys might be willing to seller finance 100% of the purchase. And now you're walking into a property for free. Nothing out of pocket as long as it cash flows. Or you may need to renovate the great thing with seller financing is like people get so scared because they don't understand that people will say yes, but there's benefits for the seller too, especially Absolutely. If they're, like if they know that if they got handed 200 grand, they'd blow it, then maybe they prefer payments. If they knew that if they got handed 200 grand, they'd owe, I don't know, 40,000 in taxes.
40 grand, right.
Yeah. They might prefer to do seller financing. You still get taxed, but it's not 40,000 at once. It's a little bit here and there. Or maybe they don't want to do a 1031 and they don't want to, I don't know. Maybe they're 60 years old and to them having $1,000 a month for the next 20 years makes more sense than having, $200,000 that they hope they can make last 20 years. So,
and that's very, very true, Dave. Because a lot of people that I talk to, that's the thing. They're like, well, I don't want to ask for seller financing, but it depends on the seller situation. Like you said, the elderly or older person at 60 years old or 70 years old, they don't want all of that cash. They want just some cash that can supplement them monthly, until they transition, God forbid. But, it's going to happen.
It is.
And, it's just telling people that you have to ask for what you want. You never know what you get if you don't ask for it. So you were talking about the direct mail. So what were you doing with this direct mail? So you was just sending out mail to duplex owners.
Yeah, I found listsource.com will let you buy lists of people based on tax records, and you can go in there and it's kind of incredible the amount of stuff that you can put into
your criteria.
Yeah, I mean, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff in listsource, but I was basically just saying, hey, I want duplex, triplex, fourplex owners with, I don't know, with the house that's newer than this many years and at least this much equity. And it can kind of guesstimate on the equity. And then you can buy the list of names and addresses and go from there. Some people handwrite all their letters. I did that. I don't recommend that. That is painful and such a waste of time. Yeah, you might get 10% higher response to your letters, but I don't know. I don't care. Like, I'd rather pay someone to handwrite them. I just, at this point, unless it's a house that I'm like dead set, like, oh my God, that house would be perfect, I don't handwrite them. I just print and roll. And
Yeah.
then, it is what it is. So,
And there's a little hack with the handwritten letters where you can handwrite one, leave the address and the name blank, run them through like an inkjet printer, and then write the address and the name in there. So there's that option. So you were sending out the direct mail, trying to find more duplexes, and this guy just called you and said he had a 10 unit. So what was the condition of the 10 unit? What was his motivation on selling?
I don't know that he was, it sounds like it was just kind of him being done with rental properties, because I've reached out to him again and he doesn't have anything else. We talked all the time as I was paying him and stuff. And he didn't have anything else that he was itching to sell. So I don't know, the way it sounded was that might have been the only one he had left. So I don't know if it was like he had been landlording for a long time and just was done, or if it was like, this was my first property and I can't do this anymore. I don't want to deal with it. It was definitely a little bit under rents, but nothing crazy. I mean, we've added 62,000 in equity to it, but it's not been anything crazy. We've bumped the rents up from like 4,400 to like 4,900, 4,800. And then the utilities are paid by me, which is unfortunate because it's just an older building. And so we've done some RUBS, some ratio utility billing system, not for the full amount yet. We're increasing it, but we're at probably, I don't know, like $25 a door or whatever. So that still saves on expenses.
So real quick, before you go any further, David, explain to our listeners what RUBS is.
Yeah, so the ratio utility billing system, I think, is what it stands for. So RUBS is basically like, I took over this place and let's say it's $1,000 a month for utilities, which really it kind of is depending on the time of the year. In theory, I could say there's 10 units. This month was $1,000. All of you pay $100, and then I don't have to pay the utilities anymore, rather than hardwiring in a new utility system just to sub-meter it. These are kind of class C minus. I mean, they're not nice. They're in an okay neighborhood in an okay part of town. They're not super high end. A lot of my tenants are either like Section 8 quality or like older, retired on Social Security. So I don't want to just like jack up the utilities on them too much. So we've just been slowly increasing it. But even if I only get half of my utilities back, that's still, way better than when I bought the place. So.
Okay. So you incorporated the RUBS, and that way you can kind of recoup some of that utility costs or pass it on to the tenants. So now, so you have this 10 unit property. How much did you pay for it?
After the dropping the price for the repair cost, I think it came out to like $212,500. So, nothing super fancy, like I said, but Missouri, so it's not super expensive.
Yeah, but you're getting almost $5,000 a month, net in rent. So that's, above the 2% rule. So you're definitely doing pretty good there. So you have this property, you did the direct mail to find it. So like most people that always say, well, direct mail is dead. You need to do cold calling. You need to do Facebook ads and everything like that. I'd still tell people that direct mail is still a tried and true marketing stream where you can find deals. And you found this 10 unit deal. It really wasn't even marketing for that. So that definitely worked out, because I was just telling someone the other day, that I still use direct mail, and they're like, well, you haven't switched over to cold calling. I said, well, I do a little bit of both, but with direct mail, I still seem to find the awesome deals with direct mail, because you're reaching a lot of the older population. They still want the letter in their hand so they can read it, keep it, put it on a refrigerator and everything like that. Okay, so this 10 unit building, man, I'm really impressed. So you did 85% bank financing on it, 5% seller financing on it, and then the other 10% you did the HELOC. So basically nothing out of pocket coming from you on this project.
Yeah, it was actually 10% seller and then 5% for me or from the
Okay.
HELOC. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So I
but
had it
yeah,
switched around.
essentially, yeah, but essentially nothing out of my pocket. I mean,
Okay.
the HELOC is kind of out of my pocket, but
All right. So you said you increased the equity in the property. What did you do? What kind of rehab did you need to do to increase the equity?
I didn't do much. We just we painted the outside, put up new fascia, cleaned up the concrete, did some land work or some yard work, landscaping. Uh, we're probably going to repair the fence here sometime this year because it's kind of just an eyesore. I mean, it works fine, but it's an eyesore.
Okay.
And then cleared out some trees that were over the roof and opened it up a little bit. Really nothing crazy at all.
So basically curb appeal, it sounds like.
Yeah, and then we just slowly increased the rents as tenants turned over. They saw we had better management. They saw we were actually fixing things in the property. I mean, I've had to repair some furnaces. I had some unexpected expenses. I had a guy die in there like 2 months
Okay.
ago, and like nobody knew he died in there, so I had to bring in environmental and like pull all the flooring out, environmental clean the place. And I don't know if you've ever had to deal with like industrial
Never. I
cleaners.
never.
But I'll tell you, on a 1 bed, 1 bath, like little tiny unit that's probably like, I don't know, 800, 900 square feet, $5,000 just to clean the place, pull up the carpet and put in new carpet. It should be like
Wow.
1,200 to do the flooring. So
Right.
almost 4,000 in like industrial hygienist or whatever they call those guys to come in and clean the place.
So did the city require that, for that to happen, or
I don't think
was
the
it a
city knew about
reg?
it. That was,
Okay.
I think that's one of those things we probably could have gotten away with just cleaning and throwing in new flooring. It's just not the right way to do it. I just
Mm-hmm.
did not want to have someone move in knowing like, yeah, some dude lived like rotted in here for 2 weeks. And
Oh wow, he was in there for 2 weeks.
yeah, nobody knew he died. Yeah, and that's the issue. So if we'd caught it like day 2, 3 days, whatever. But it was like, I think it happened like the end of August. So it was August, September. It was still fairly
Still
warm
warm.
in Missouri, which is very humid and it's just not a fun situation. So yeah, there's definitely a need to bring in an environmental cleaner.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you find your tenant? Did you just notice that you was just doing a well-being check, or someone
Yeah.
called, or
So I have a property manager, and that's basically, yeah, like he'd never been late on his rent, and it'd been like 3 days, and they hadn't heard from him, so they just went by to like say, hey, come
okay.
to check on your rent. Oh, no one's answering. Like, and they like, I guess my property manager knew he was like older, and was like worried, so they like opened the
Okay.
door and went
Open
in,
the
and they
door
were
and went
like,
in.
ah, shit.
Okay. Okay. Wow, man. So that's a new experience. Never
God,
had
it's even
anyone
more
to.
fun. Because nobody like. I mean, that's such a terrible thing to say. Like, I don't say this like it's a good thing. Like, nobody. I guess nobody knew that. Like, I don't know. Like, he was old enough that like family's all gone, or
Had
I
no
don't really know.
family.
Yeah, I don't really know the situation, but I know that by law I can't like get rid of his stuff. So I'm paying storage for the next 90 days for all of his belongings in hopes that someone claims it before we just like,
Right. Dump it.
I don't know, like Craigslist. I don't know what you do with. I don't know that he had anything valuable, or I haven't really talked to my property manager about that side of it. But
Yeah, normally what we do, if we have to put a tenant out or a tenant vacates and they leave property, if it's something that's somewhat desirable, we'll take it to the Salvation Army or Goodwill or something like that. Um, so you were able to increase the equity just by doing that little bit of work, on the exterior. And
yeah, and
now,
then increasing rents, so it's now worth I think it's worth 252, and we only owe 190 on it. So
okay, so you definitely have equity in there in case you wanted to use that equity to go and purchase something else. And that's what I tell people is just the power of equity. And that's why I call this show the We Love Equity show, is because once you get in a position where you can force some equity by doing a little bit of rehab and things like that, then you can then pull that money out and go and purchase you something else and redo it and do the same thing continuously over and over and over again. So how long have you owned that property?
I guess at this point it's probably been 19 months, or no, actually it's November. I think probably like 20 months.
Oh, okay. So owned it for 20 months. You made 40 grand from it pretty much, if not more. What do you see? What do you see next, Dave?
I guess it kind of depends. So I'm flipping a house right now because I don't know, I needed to build some capital and it seemed like a fun thing to do, which will hopefully be done soon. And then I'd like to roll into some more decent, like mid-size multifamily, but I still like the single family and duplex. I mean, honestly, my little duplex is one of my better investments because it's just simple. Like it's in decent shape. It's not old. The roof's still good. You know, the people are good. So I don't know. I might just stick it out with the anything from 2 to 25 units. But then I've got some syndication friends, and I'm all about exploring. So I might do that too. So I totally
Okay.
open. I'm the guy who should probably laser focus on one thing and just enjoys like the good opportunity and the challenge. So if the deal comes along, I'm like, yeah, I can do that. It doesn't necessarily have to meet this specific criteria for me to pull the trigger. If it looks good and I know that my team can handle it, I'll go for it. And if I like that strategy, I'll do it again. If I don't like that strategy, I won't do it again. So I don't know if I'll flip another house because this one's just been a pain in the rear because the main thing that is always a pain in the rear with flips is contractor issues. So it's just more management intensive than it is for me to say, I bought this house and I'm going to let my property manager deal with it.
So why did you, because I know you were there when you bought the 10 unit, why did you incorporate a property manager versus self-managing?
Oh, I actually bought the 10 unit from Hawaii. So
Okay, gotcha.
so I'd already moved away and I was like, there's no way I can deal with this. And I'll tell you, there's something to be said for self-managing and saving the money. I got it. But man, my property manager saves my life. And I would recommend to anyone to just, if you can find a decent property manager, go with it. I spend less than an hour, maybe two on a bad month on my rentals that I already own. My property manager might call, like that guy died and it was literally 1 5-minute phone call. And it was, hey, this happened. We've called 3 companies for quotes. Doesn't look like you're getting any better than this. We've already called your insurance company. Here's how much your deductible is. Do you want to pay it out of insurance? Do you want to pay it out of pocket? I'll pay it out of pocket. That was the whole conversation. Like I didn't need to do anything. She'd called my insurance. She'd called environmental companies. She'd found all the solutions, knew what it was going to cost for flooring. And by the end of this week or next, it'll be done and she'll have someone moved in there. Okay.
And that's great because I started off, I was self-managing and I was long distance self-managing and it was working out, until it wasn't.
Yep.
That's all it takes is that one tenant that you place and, they're late on rent or they're constantly saying this broke or that broke. And then when it stopped being convenient, I was like, okay, let me incorporate a property manager. And just like you, I may talk to her maybe once a month, and she just gives me an update. Hey, all rents are paid. This is what needs to be done as far as management or, servicing furnaces, boilers or something like that. But outside of that, like you said, it's a godsend because you have these properties and you really don't have to maintain them because you have somebody that's looking out after them.
Yeah.
So how did you purchase this 10 unit from Hawaii? Did you fly back to walk it? Or did you have your property manager to walk it? Help me understand that.
Kind of a little of both, I guess. So I had sent the letters out knowing I was going to be home for Christmas. And I was like, all right, if any deals come up, I can walk through. Well, this thing didn't even come up until I was like about to leave. So I think I had enough time to I walked the outside of it. And I think I got to see the inside of 1, maybe 2 of the 1 bedroom. So there's a couple 1 bedroom and a couple, I think one 2 bedroom units. I've never seen that one. I saw 1 or 2 of the 1 bedroom units. 1 was vacant. 1 had someone in it. That was it. So of the 10, I saw 2 and the exterior. And I said, all right, well, at least I have an idea. And then I wrote the offer based on what his numbers looked like. And when my property manager went to walk through it with my contractor and she told me what needed to be fixed. This was with the inspection. So she went through with the inspector and told me okay, this is what he said. This is what actually needs to be fixed. This is how much it's going to cost you. And then my contractor was able to say, yeah. This is what I can do it for, whatever. So I got her handyman doing all the small stuff, him doing all the big stuff. And then everyone knew what needed to happen. So once we closed, it was like, all right, cool. We're going to do that. We're not going to deal with this. I don't care about that. We'll budget for that, you know, and then,
Okay.
The roof probably needs some repairs coming up here this year. So we'll probably do that, but I'm kind of hoping they just, something like we get a hailstorm and my insurance will
Take care of it. Yep.
That's kind of the hope.
Okay. Cause I know that could be challenging, man, is buying that property, knowing you only seen 1 or 2 units, because the other 8 units could look like crap and you don't know it, you know, but because you had that inspection period, you had your contractors and your property manager to walk through it. So after that, because I'm just trying to make sure I frame everything, after you got the 10 unit, your cash flowing pretty good and everything like that. Tell me about this flip that you're working on.
Yeah, that's not anything too crazy. That's the one I bought for 12 grand. My biggest issue with that is that I bought this house for 12 grand and doing a $50,000 renovation on it. I should have bought a house for 50 grand and done a $12,000 renovation on it for my first solo flip. So we literally, like, the roof was like, I went up in the attic and I was like, holy crap, there's a ton of space up here. So we popped the roof up 2 feet, put an extra bedroom up there. So it's now a 3, 1.5 instead of a 2, 1. Added 500 or 600 square feet. Just completely redoing everything, leaving as much of the original like doors inside and like framing and whatnot.
Trim and everything.
Trim. There's the word I was looking for. There's some really, it's got like the 6-inch old school hardwood trim and some cool features. It's an old school, like borderline colonial, like 1906 or 1902. I mean, it's an old house. And it's going fairly well.
So how are you doing that from California, from San Diego?
I found a contractor. We agreed on terms and draws and payments and all this, that, and the other. And we went to town and it was going pretty well. We've had some speed bumps. I had like a subcontractor steal a whole bunch of materials and we're trying to figure out like how to get that money back and do all this other stuff. And so it's been kind of a learning experience, but for the most part, it has been going fairly well. I'm going home in 2 weeks. Not necessarily to look at that, but I will be going by to look at the property.
So then does your contractor send you pictures or do a walkthrough with his camera and show you, hey, here's the updates?
Yeah, he could do like the Facebook Live or whatever, but he's been just sending me pictures and stuff, and he's pretty thorough about it, so I'm not too worried about it. And then I've had a couple sneaky drive-bys from friends or, whatever, who take a look. It's definitely not in the condition I would want it to be in right now, but I think that's, again, kind of because of that subcontractor issue we're trying to sort out. So we're working on the.
Did he brought the subcontractor to the deal? Yeah. So does he face any repercussions for that occurring, or are you just saying, hey, you know what, it wasn't you? And
to be decided. I basically told him, look, if we come out at budget or under, no harm, no foul. I don't care. Just do whatever you got to do to solve it. But if you're going to ask me to go over budget, then I'm going to need to see receipts, police reports, what you talk to your insurance company about, what you are doing to solve this. Like, I'm not paying a penny over budget because of something that went wrong with someone you hired. Like, that's on you. And
very
like,
key.
Yeah. So, and there's some other stuff in there. So I don't really know all of the ins and outs of, I'm learning how to handle all that. I definitely learning some things to make my contract better with my contractor in the future to, make for a better agreement as far as like terms of how much material you will buy at one time, because there was a lot more on site than I think there needed to be on site.
Okay. Yeah. Because that's a big risk when you have too many materials on site, because a subcontractor or subcontractor's buddy or something like that can come in late at night and steal some of those materials. So and I'm assuming that's kind of what happened.
Yeah, he got fired. He was working on a different job, I guess, for this guy. Like, he was kind of working on different pieces of 2 or 3 jobs, it sounds like. Gets fired because he messed something up on one of the other jobs. And then, supposedly the next door neighbor is willing to testify to the police that she saw like this guy pulling everything out of the house on a Sunday. So
wow.
And it's like $10,000. We're like, all of the hardwood, half the drywall, all the kitchen cabinets, like it's a lot. I mean, it's a trailer full of stuff. So it's not like some homeless dude was like, I'm going to
Yeah.
steal a hammer. Like, no, no, this was a guy who knew what was in that house, knew how to get in the house, and took everything. So,
wow, that's crazy. So you bought this house for 12 grand. You're putting 50 grand into it. How much are you going to list it for?
well, assuming that I can get to market and the market is still where it's supposed to be. By this time, I mean, I might get to market in the spring when it's coming back up. I'm kind of frustrated that I'm going to probably end up listing in the winter, which sucks. But I'm hoping to get 95. Honestly, at this point, if it sells for 80 and it sells quickly, I'll be a happy man to just move on. You know, 'cause
Okay.
that would still give me 10 after all was said and done in profit. And my holding costs aren't that bad, so I'd be okay with that. But I'm hoping to get 95 out of it.
And then did you find that one also on the MLS, or was that a
No, that was a
direct mail
wholesaler.
piece?
I was at a
Okay.
meetup last time I was in town over the summer. I hosted a little meetup networking dinner thing, and one of the guys who's a wholesaler in town, who it's always been someone I've liked his website and whatnot, was there, and we were talking. He's like, "I got a couple houses. You want to look at any of them?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we went and looked at 3 of them, and I went
Okay.
under contract. I was going to buy 2 of them, but one of them had some issues, so we broke the contract on that. I actually gave him. We didn't have earnest money in it, but I gave him $1,000 because I was like, "Look, man, I feel bad for breaking the contract, and I want to keep doing business with you, so here's some money anyway."
Okay.
And
Wow,
then,
that's big. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that'll hopefully pay off in the long run. I mean, it has, at least in some ways, because he's been asking how the project's going and telling me like, "Hey, in the future, if you want to use my contractors, they're solid. I vouch for them. You know,
Yep.
we can
Yep.
do some work together." And I'm like, "Yep, cool."
It's basically relationship business. That's what I tell people. Similar to that, I had and I just tell you a quick story. My attorney in Chicago closing some deals for us and everything like that. And I had a buddy that was working with me, and he was like, "Hey man, I want to use the attorney to get my LLC set up." So I said, "Yeah, sure. Go ahead, give him a call. You know, I'll call him and let him know that I sent you over." Well, the attorney set up the LLC and everything like that. My buddy never paid him, you
Mm.
know. So I contact the attorney. I said, "Hey, look, man, I brought him to you. It's on me. How much do you owe you?" It was almost like $500. Though I didn't want to pay it, I went on ahead and paid it. And actually, just this past week, we closed on a deal where the attorney used his self-directed IRA, and we're in a flip together. You know, he was like,
Nice.
"Man, because you were honorable in doing that, I'm really, really comfortable in doing business with you." And we're looking at doing some more projects, you know,
See,
going
that's, yeah,
forward.
it's all about relationships.
Yep. And that's what I tell people. I say, yeah, you can stiff a person here, there, 1 or 2 times, but you won't have a lasting business. You know, it's those people that are honorable in their business that's going to stay and last the test of time. So
Yeah. Yeah. And things like that, where like, you know, that $500 is going to make you a huge return on your money investing with this guy, but that's not why you did it. You just did it because you wanted it, because you had an attorney you liked and you wanted to be on good
yeah.
terms with him. You know? Yeah, it's like I sent my realtor someone once as a referral, and I mean, I guess he just turned out to be a real schmuck. You know, like looked at like 40, 60 properties and just like lowball, and I mean, not even like reasonable investor lowball, but like a house is listed for 30 grand, you offer 20, and then you want 10,000 in repairs. Like it's
Oh,
listed for
wow.
30 grand. It's not gonna, it's
Right.
it is like they're not doing repairs. Well, you know, it needs this. That's because it's a flip.
That's
You
because it's
know,
30 grand.
they're not going to renovate it for you and sell it to you know. So he was kind of like one of those guys wasting her time. And like I just basically called the dude and was like, "Hey, look, my realtor is not going to work with you anymore, and I'm telling you that because you're wasting your time and it's getting in the way of my business."
Yep.
And she was super, you know,
Relieved.
yeah.
Yeah. And happy about it. Okay. So, and you don't want to list this thing in the winter. I definitely know why. You know, you don't get as much foot traffic, much walk traffic in the winter in the Midwest or anywhere for that.
Yeah, anywhere cold, people don't look
Cold.
at houses.
Yeah. So now, are you thinking about just holding it till the spring, or you just when they get done with it, just put it up there?
Yeah, the moment that thing's done, it's going on the MLS. It doesn't cost me anything to leave it sitting there. So I mean, even if it shows that it's been on the market for like 90 days, it's Missouri. Houses don't always move super fast, so that's not the end of the world.
Okay. All right. So Now you're doing all of this. You started in 2015, so you're only 4 or 5 years in. You got a 10 unit. You have the duplex. You have this flip that's going on. You're looking at doing some things in the future as far as possibly doing some syndications. Tell me about, this military to millionaire project that you have going on.
Yeah, I'm still active duty, and really, I guess 2 years ago, I decided that I wanted to start documenting what I was doing, just so I could be able to show, in 15 years, if I did grow, blow up, I could be like, look at where I started.
Where it started.
And the other part was I thought about writing a book, not a real estate book, just like a military related book about my deployment. I was like, nobody will read this. So maybe I should start learning to write by building an audience. So I started a blog, and then, that just led one thing into the next thing. Like, all of a sudden my Instagram's got a decent following, and I've got a YouTube channel, and now I got a podcast, and things have just slowly been, people either like what I'm saying or just like the concept of getting out of the military and having money. And so it's grown. So the whole goal behind it is just to help service members learn how to build wealth through real estate, entrepreneurship, personal finance. It started as just super real estate, super military. It's kind of grown into where I'm talking about general military stuff, like our 401k and stuff. It's kind of starting to become this more well-rounded financial picture and quality of life thing for service members. And we've done a whole gauntlet of stuff there. We've got a mastermind group now that meets weekly and then has a monthly guest speaker we bring in, and it's all service members and veterans. And we've got some cool stuff that we're just trying to get out there. I mean, there's some very unique situations that vets run into that other people don't. Some are benefits, some are definitely not benefits. And people don't know that. Like a prime example is everyone, or not everyone, but a lot of people know that if you move out of a primary residence, as long as you've lived in it for 2 of the last 5 years, you don't have to pay capital gains tax if you sell it.
Right.
But if you got moved out of it as an active duty guy because you had orders elsewhere, it's actually 15 years, 2 of the last 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And that's huge. I mean, that's incredible. That could literally save you thousands to tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on the property. And guys don't know that because they hear 2 to 5 and they don't realize But because you were moving, you're totally different, and you've got 3 times as long to reap that benefit. And a lot of tax people don't even realize that unless they work with veterans. So if you don't bring it up, you may just be throwing capital gains tax at the government that you don't need to.
Wow. I recently had a podcast episode with Shelby Osborne.
Oh, she's awesome.
Yeah. Out of Fayetteville.
We're like homies.
Okay.
We crashed an Airbnb together for a weekend. It was 9 of us in a little 3-bedroom for a conference. We partied it up, talked real estate, did podcasts. It was fun.
Yeah, she was telling me about what she's doing in Fayetteville with 5 pillars, and it just kind of mirrors the same thing that you're doing, man, which is excellent because, like you said, there's a lot of misinformation out there for vets and active duty members, when it comes to real estate, and you guys are really putting it out there so everybody can be educated. So tell me about the podcast. Give me the name of the podcast. I'll make sure I have all of this information in the show notes. But, man, I just want to definitely make sure that the people know what you're doing and how you're doing it, Dave.
I appreciate that, brother. Yeah, so the podcast is the Military Millionaire Podcast. And then as far as reaching out on anything else, it's really all either from military to millionaire or military millionaire. And you can pretty much type in either one of those keywords in Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and I theoretically should pop right up. In fact, I've been messing with people to where if you just type in from MIL, I'll pop up in most of those things now because I'm doing something right or nobody else is even close to my name. So people's oh, it's this guy, but it works.
Okay. So what's your end goal for military to millionaire?
That's a good question. I mean, part of it is that I can essentially not have to do a whole lot of work. I can focus on that. And by that, I mean public speaking. I'd like to travel around bases and help. I'm a command financial specialist for my for my last 2 units. And I think there's some value there, but I also think there's value in things that veterans don't understand, because the military doesn't do a great job of endorsing and teaching like the VA loan. Like everyone knows it exists, but they don't know how to use it. And real estate investing is kind of just like this thing. People are like, oh yeah, I knew this guy who bought a bunch of real estate. But we talk, our programs talk about index funds, 401ks and whatever, but they don't talk about other ways to build wealth. So I'd love to travel and talk about that. One day I would really like to, sometime in the next 5 years, host a conference, like a military investor conference. And I don't know what that looks like really yet, but I just know that it would be fun to do. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, you definitely have the audience. There's a lot of active duty military and vets, so that's definitely promising for you. So what do you think, Dave, what you're doing with Military to Millionaire and your investing strategies, how do you think that's impacting, the community and your community?
Well, I mean, the community back in Missouri, obviously I'm providing some housing and not being a slumlord. So I guess that's a good thing. The military community, I think a lot of it is just showing people that they can. There's a lot of the military is very supportive in a lot of things, but when it comes to like trying to make money on your own or be an entrepreneur and like go out and do big things, there's a lot of crabs in the bucket. I don't know if you've ever heard that analogy where crabs will like, if you don't need a lid on a bucket of crabs, because when one starts to climb out, they'll pull them down. And so I don't want to say that like it's a bad thing, but there's just a lot of people who don't understand. It's not the mentality of the military to like think like an entrepreneur. And so it's, I've experienced it a lot when I start talking about things and people are just like, yeah, but why would you do that? Oh, yeah, you can't do that, So just trying to show people like you can. Like I bought a 10-unit apartment from across an ocean with like 10 grand, like less than your car costs. So
and I'm sure once you tell them stories and get that information out there, man, that they're definitely going to be intrigued, to where they can get out of that group think and start thinking, individualistic and as an entrepreneur, and that's what you're definitely providing for them. So Dave, we're going to roll into our hot seat portion of the show. So I want to tie it all together, man. I'm going to ask you some brief questions and I want you to answer them as quickly as possible. And so starting out, what would you do differently?
Go bigger.
Go bigger. All right.
I would buy a fourplex.
Okay. Fourplex instead of the duplex. Any particular reason why?
Because there was no reason not to, but I just thought, duplex is a good starting point. Oh yeah, but the fourplex would be making me twice as much money right now.
Okay. And what is your greatest commodity outside of capital?
I would say the fact that I'm a power networker, so I'm pretty good at like meeting people and networking, and then I'm creative. I think those two are huge.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we met. I mean, just networking. So power of networking, I tell people that all the time. What is one thing you think you could do to be more productive?
Outsource more.
Perfect. Are you using VAs at all?
Yeah, I have one for editing my podcast, one for editing my YouTube videos, and then one for editing a lot of my writing. But I'm still not good at outsourcing things like bookkeeping or, preparing my show notes. And like, there's just a lot of things that I very well could do better at if I, did.
Understood, man. What drives your ambition?
I guess my why. Oh man, you have video, so I can like throw this open and say I just finished my vision board, but I got all kinds of crazy stuff on here. But really, what drives me at this point is the ability to know that at some point, this, whether it's the real estate or the community or whatever, will allow me to go travel the world or take a week, not a weekend, but a week, and go camping with my boys or jump in an RV for a month or just do whatever the hell I want.
Yeah, and not have to worry about, hey, I got to go and work in order to make money. So
or just be able to work from a laptop,
Yeah. Yep, you got it. My wife, she's always jealous of me because she's like, always got to leave the house and you're around the house doing nothing. I said, no, I'm doing a lot. It's just that I'm not doing what you're normally used to
doing what
seeing.
I want.
Yeah, exactly. Dave, what do you believe is your greatest challenge, internal or external?
You know, I've struggled a lot, and I'm getting better with imposter syndrome as building the community is becoming more. Is just like, who am I to talk about this crap? I'm just some random schmuck who, you know, I'm not even an officer. I'm an enlisted dude who started as an E5, which, if you're familiar with the rank structure, is not much on the totem pole. So that, like, who am I to talk about this thing? And I just realized, like, I'm just a normal guy who's willing to talk about his pros and his cons, and people like that. So
Yep. And we don't need that fallacy of everyone being bigger than what they really are. You know, just be you, and you know that community will build, and people will see, hey, this guy's really out here doing deals. You know, really out here moving and shaking. So, what's the latest business book you've read?
What did I just finish? I'm rereading The 4-Hour Workweek. I just finished. Oh, I can't think of the book I just finished online. I finished, well, that one's, I guess, as a business book. Can we just go with The 4-Hour Workweek?
Yeah, man.
We'll just go with that.
Absolutely.
I'm in the middle of that. That's one of my favorites. This is like my third time reading it again. I love that book. I read too much apparently. So
no, that's good, man. And what's the latest or your greatest real estate book you've read?
You know, I'm reading one called Invest in Debt right now, which is like 35 years old. And so some of it doesn't pertain anymore. I mean, it's old enough that like the book has calculators as the tool to work through everything. Not to say that calculators are invalid, but like there's a chapter where it talks about like which business calculator you should buy rather than like just go on Google and type this in, you know?
Right.
But it's written by a guy named Jim Napier, and it's all about debt. And so it's very interesting to me because it's things people don't talk about, things that I have done well or not done well and should have done that I didn't even realize with notes and seller financing. So like, for example, on my seller financing, this guy, I probably could have called him January 1st and said, hey, I know I'm supposed to pay you 187, whatever it was, every month this year, which comes out to, I don't know, we'll just say 2,400, which is wrong. But what if I just give you $2,000 and I give it to you right now?
Right now.
And I would have been able to cut out 1 or 2 months worth of payments probably, because he probably would have been down for that. I mean, I did well when I basically didn't pay interest on the remaining 3 years of the loan, you know, so that was a really good move. But this book is all about how to manipulate debt so that everybody's happy, but you're making a huge return. So it even talks about like, if someone owes me if someone's paying me back at 10% interest and I say, hey, how about we pay it back at 5% interest, but we cut 2 years off the loan and you give me a little bit extra, and they go for it. Like, well, yeah, I'm getting 5% interest instead of 10% interest, but because it took this long instead of this long, it's actually worth way more to me.
Way more.
So it's a very interesting book on how to look at notes and mortgages. And man, it's cool. It's not necessarily real estate specific, but it's all wrapped around mortgages. So,
well, it's just being strategic, man. It's being strategic.
It's things people don't think about.
Yeah. And you know, like you said, everybody's just used to a 30-year mortgage or 15-year, but there's different ways to strategize in order to make some money.
Yeah.
So, Dave, I really want to appreciate it, man. I have all of your contact information. Let's go over it one more time. Give me the podcast, how we can reach you, how we can touch you, so we can help you in your community.
The Military Millionaire podcast, and you can reach me at FromMilitaryToMillionaire.com, and that's not the number 2, but spelled out TO. And yeah, I'm on Instagram and Facebook at the same, From Military to Millionaire. I'm on YouTube too, so you should go subscribe there because I don't know, I'm not growing as fast as I want it to. No, it's actually starting to take off. So
yeah, you got tons of videos on there. I was on there. You got about 200 videos on there. So there's a lot of investing information there, you know, on the YouTube channel, also the podcast. So guys, I'll make sure I have all of that information in the show notes so you can talk with Dave and be a follower and see exactly what he's doing. You're an inspiration, Dave. I just want to tell you that personally from what you're doing, because some of the things that we talked about, man, just you pulling the trigger, doing a flip from, you know, 2,000 miles away, you know, you buying a house or multifamily while you're in Hawaii and only seeing 2 units. I'll be freaked out doing that, man.
Yeah.
But
it's different, but
but you pulled the trigger. So, man, I definitely want to thank you. And guys, again, you can follow us on my YouTube channel, everything. You know how to get in touch with me. I'll have all of that information in the show notes, as well as Dave's contact information. So, Dave, thank you. I appreciate it again, man. And you have a good one. Always remember to enjoy the journey.
Absolutely, brother. You have a great one too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I picked up some great actionable items, and I'm sure you did as well. If so, let me know. You can always reach me via social media at facebook.com/MRCSMaloney, Twitter at MRCSMaloney, and of course, IG at MRCSMaloney. You can also always reach me via email at mmaloney@equityri.com. Make sure you reach out to our guests as well. You can always find their contact information in the show notes below. If you have not subscribed already, what are you waiting for? Join the family. And while you're at it, leave us a 5-star review. This is how we tell if we're providing you with what you need for your journey. If there's someone you would like for me to interview, or if there's a subject matter you would like for me to cover, please let me know. Finally, if you're looking for additional information about real estate investing, go to equityrealestateblog.com. Also, youtube.com/Marcus Maloney. Until next time, family, always enjoy the journey.